use AI in your business? Do you use virtual assistants? I've got a question for you. Which one adds the most value? That's what we're going to talk about this week. And should you go one way or the other, or do you need both? I'm going to talk about, what have I got? 6 different aspects. So let's get right into it. So if you don't know what I do, I run a management consulting company and I have a VA company supporting my company. So I've seen it as a VA business owner and as a client. So let's run through some of the pros and cons of AI tools and virtual assistants. So which one is better? I'd say both, to be honest. I use both. I use a lot of AI. My virtual assistant team uses a lot of AI. I think there's some great tools out there, particularly for things like research of huge amounts of data. I have to confess I use them for checking client contracts. You know what it's like on some of the tools? I get in there and say, imagine you are the in-house counsel. I want you to review this contract from the perspective of a business based wherever and call out any particular problems with the contract. I mean, AI tools are brilliant for that. Dealing with massive amounts of data, doing your research, although I have been caught out on the research. So I think AI tools are really good for that, absolute plus. I haven't used AI tools a lot in marketing in terms of, a lot of people use them for messaging and responding, bots on websites. As a customer, I don't really like interacting with them very much. I end up shouting at them saying, I want to talk to a human, but I'm sure, a lot of businesses, they're very effective. So yeah, AI tools have their place, I reckon. One of the downsides I found with AI tools, and I'm sure they're going to get better at 1,000 miles an hour, is the requirement to really get the prompts right. So, for example, where I'm using AI tools to develop some documentation or something, I'll spend a lot of time on the prompts. I'll do a really comprehensive prompt initially, and then I'll reprompt and really refine it. A lot of the times that's very effective. A couple of times I've been caught out and had to go back and kind of start again. So the prompting is one of the downsides, and I'm sure that's going to get a lot easier, whereas a human is more intuitive and they get a sense of what you really want. The kind of rules that they follow, so call it business rules, research rules or whatever, a human is going to know better when to go outside the rules to get a good result. An AI tool is a tool, it's a digital tool, it's going to follow the rules that you give it to a large degree, although I'm sure they're going to develop better. So that's one of the aspects, I think, of AI tools. One of the big things for me with a human virtual assistant, of course, is they're going to think outside the box. They're going to join dots that not necessarily an AI tool would. So what do I mean by that? You could probably summarize it as they're better at execution rather than ideation. And they're probably, much better, the human is much better at linking what seem to be unrelated tasks and achieving that goal in a much better way. I suppose one of the key things for human virtual assistants is their ability to interact with clients. And you're going to say, I've got an AI tool that does that. But understanding the cultural differences. So, for example, with my virtual assistant team, they know my client base. My executive assistant, for example, knows all my clients. They've spoken to all my clients. They understand the cultural differences based on the different countries the clients are in. They understand the difference between business cultures between different clients, and they can adjust their communication style and they can react to the client responses in a much more human way, obviously, rather than an AI tool. And I think that's probably, to me, it's a question of identifying where you want to apply human resources and where you can apply digital AI resources. And I suppose in our team, what I find is that the virtual assistant, the human virtual assistant, is like my right hand. And they're preempting, they know the way I work, they're doing things without having to even be instructed. My head of digital marketing, for example, I'll mention something and say, hey, I'm a little bit concerned about this, do you think we should? And they'll just say, did that last week, don't worry about it. They just get on and do things. I'm not sure AI tools are quite at that level yet. So why am I even talking about this? A couple of videos ago, someone mentioned on the videos like, oh, you were halfway through the video before I realized you were talking about humans and not digital AI tools. So I thought it would be an interesting thing to bounce around the differences. So I think both have a place. Is one going to replace the other? That's an interesting thought. I think we're seeing in a lot of routine data type tasks, yes, AI tools are taking over from humans, but to a degree that's allowing humans more time to do things that they wouldn't ordinarily have time to do. And to be honest, do I want AI tools interacting with my client base? No, they wouldn't be too happy about that. They know my virtual assistant team personally, and they like that human touch. You might be in a business where it's totally opposite and it works really well for you. So how about this? Comment down below. Let's talk about AI tools and what sort of AI tools are you using? How much are you using them in your business? And are you using them to actually interact with clients? B2B, I'm talking about B2B clients. B2C is probably a little bit easier. But it's interesting to see. It's a very fast-moving landscape. So bottom line for me is we use AI tools, digital tools internally, absolutely, it'd be silly not to these days, but where we've got interaction with clients, I want human interaction, and that's where the virtual assistant comes in. But love to hear your views, and thanks for watching. Bye for now. Oh, and I almost forgot. If you're thinking about hiring some virtual assistants and you're not quite sure how to go about it, I put a link down below. Check out the link, book a call, and we can have a chat about it. See you soon.